What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Let's Ask Paul. My name is Paul Abernathy, your host as always, and welcome to the podcast where we answer all of your pressing electrical code related questions. All you got to do is submit them to me, and all you got to do is go to paulabernathy.com. And if you go to paulabernathy.com, all you got to do is fill out the information, click that submit button, and I will answer questions for you on the National Electrical Code. Okay? Simple, easy peasy. That's all you got to do, right? Simply go there and do that, and we'll get your answers, right? That's right. All right. So welcome to the show. Again, I'll remind you, if you're new to the podcast, thanks for joining me. You can follow all of the information from us, podcasts, videos, streams. We just did a coffee hour on grounding and bonding, part 1 of a multi-part series where we're talking about the basics of grounding and bonding, and we're going to work our way up. That's available over on our YouTube channel. So go check it out at youtube.com/master the NEC. So go check that out. Of course, it's streaming on all different platforms, and I'm sure it will be rebroadcast again. So if you missed the live session, don't worry, you can attend the recorded session, and you can still ask questions. They'll be in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. But make sure you make time to visit us during a live show. So add us, subscribe, and and if you've got a topic you want us to talk about, please send it in. We're more than happy to do that. You can submit anything to me through the Ask Paul portal over on paulabernathy.com. So whatever you want to submit, go for it. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to answer some questions. Okay, first question that was submitted says, hi, number 1, is there any way drilling a stud pack in a residential setting could be considered a raceway? All right, so I've already replied to this individual, and I'm not familiar with making the term stud pack. I'm familiar with jack studding and just multiple studding structurally, where you put a bunch of 2x4s side by side. Whether it's structural, but it seems like today they must call it stud pack or something. I don't know. Sounds like something you would buy, a stud pack or something. Anyway, would you ever consider that a raceway? Okay. Easy answer to that is absolutely not. Raceways are listed. They're in the National Electrical Code under Chapter 3. You're covered all through there. You have different types of raceways. EMT is a tubing, but it's also a raceway. Rigid metal, intermediate metal, things like that. So you have tubings, you have conduits, all of which are raceways. Nothing about drilling a stud would be considered a raceway. So thus, you're not dealing with anything in there that would be it. Now, depending on how many studs you have, you could run into a condition where you could have bundling. If you're going to run these cables and they're not going to be in there run unseparated for over 24 inches, then you'd have a problem. But in this case, that would be an issue where we treat it we obviously wouldn't treat it as a raceway. Okay, so it goes on to say, let's take it to the extreme and say the stud pack is 30 inches long. I say no, because the word expressly in the definition of raceway. If it is a raceway, it would then have to, they would have a Chapter 9, I'm assuming he's talking about Chapter 9, Table 1, a fill requirement applied to those cables in this case. Again, I'm going to remind you that since you said it was a 30-inch in your extreme, then you are going to have to worry about the situation of bundling in 31015. So in this case, it's pretty hard for us to argue that they're not separated when they're going through the same bored hole and it's 30 inches long. They're going to be touching, so they're not maintaining spacing. So, got to make that, going to have to do a adjustment according to that and whatnot. So just keeping that real for you, because that is an extreme example, by the way. I don't think I would have ever seen a 30-inch grouping of studs. Otherwise, that framer, the cost of lumber today, holy crap, man. That is extreme. It says, if it is a raceway within, okay, blah, blah, blah. All right, number 2. What are your thoughts on the indoor drop ceiling or soffit boxed out for some plumbing pipes above a breaker panel, less than 6 feet? above pertaining to 110.26E1? Is the soffit structural or not? Is there? It is there to hold drywall, but not there to support the building. We have 2 masters on site with 3 opinions and enjoy discussing the code. Thank you for all you do for the industry. Okay, so anytime we're framing it out for duct work, or we're framing it out for in this case plumbing pipes, I would not consider that structural at all. It's simply, usually those things are framed out with 2x2s or just some 2x4. It's not adding any structure. To me, that's not the structural ceiling. So I would say no, it's not adding any structure to it. In a sense, what he's talking about is the dedicated equipment space, and it goes up to 6 feet above the panel, right? And you can't have anything in that space that is foreign to the electrical system. Now, that space over 6 feet, you can have things in there, but then you're going to have like drains or something to keep any potential dripping down on the equipment, right? So we have some allowances there. But what they're trying to do is build a soffit and then put some plumbing pipes in there, and it would be less than 6 feet and obviously less than the intended structural ceiling. So what would happen is they're trying to circumvent the rule. And I don't think just because you go framing in something to put something else in there like plumbing pipe, that defeats what we're talking about when it comes to structural ceiling. Now, you can agree to disagree, and I know we've got those folks out there that will disagree, and that's your prerogative. But when I walk in there, I'm thinking about, before you build out this thing for your plumbing pipes, I know what the structural ceiling is, whether it's the ceiling above me or it's the ceiling on the basement, that type of thing. All that, I know what's there. I know what's structural, okay? So to me, you're adding a soffit or something like that is to facilitate your running of your plumbing pipes. So again, I would not allow that in the space. It's the width and the depth of that panel. I would not allow that up to 6 feet, okay? So I hope that answers that question for you. So that's the first one we'll answer today. And I guess we'll just roll into another question. All right, this one says, Paul, my understanding is that a wall-hanging microwave oven needs to be a dedicated circuit. Where is that in code, and what year did that start in the NEC? Thank you. I appreciate all you do, and have a small donation last time I asked a question. Okay, so this individual, again, folks, donations do not push you to the top of the list. Okay? It might give you a gentle shove, but it does not push you to the top of the list. Okay, so just making that clear. All right, so let's think about this. So I have responded to this individual to kind of let them know what we're talking about. I'm not really a historian on the NEC, so I can't go back in time and determine, and nor do I have the time to dedicate to do researching. There's other people that do that. I don't do that. Now, a couple things to take into account. If you're installing this microwave and it's an over the range type of microwave, then you're going to have rules that you have to follow in 422, right? There's rules that you're going to have to meet for that. And so you want to, remember. So that would be 422.16b43. And that would demand, and that is if it's a cord and plug connected microwave, that would require an individual branch circuit for that. Okay. So that's the one part of it, just so, make sure I answer that part of it. So if that's the case, cord and plug microwave, then above a range, then yes, it's going to be a individual branch circuit. And the only thing on that will be the microwave. Okay. Also, you got instructions on the microwave. The instructions might tell you in the instructions that it has to be an individual branch circuit. And if it's the case, if you look at the definition of individual branch circuit, then that's the only piece of utilization equipment that can be supplied from that individual branch circuit, right? Obviously, it can't be on the small appliance branch circuit. More than chances are, it's going to be more than 20 inches above the countertop again. This is not going to be part of the spacing requirements that are in 210.52a, okay, your 6 foot, 12 foot rule. It's not going to be part of the countertop, okay, whereas you have the 2 foot, 4 foot rule on your countertop. So it's not going to be part of that. Also, the rules say that you can't supply any other outlet from those small appliance brand circuits. Okay, so that's all the general rules. So it's 210.52b2 expressly prohibits the small appliance brand circuit, again, from supplying any other outlets. Now, you have some few exceptions to that, like a clock outlet or a receptacle outlet for the gas ignition, that type of thing. You have some allowances there, but generally, no other outlet. And that would be no other outlet being a lighting outlet, receptacle outlet, whatnot, other than what's permitted in the rule. Okay? So things to keep in mind. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is one of the things that limits you as well is 210.23a1, where you have maybe a cord and plug microwave. Then again, that's going to run into a case where you cannot exceed 80% of the brand circuit's rating on either one of the receptacles. Okay, so you can't exceed that in the cord and plug. I don't think that's the issue for most of you out there. I mean, most of the microwaves might be like 1100 watt microwaves. And they're going to be, not a lot of current. So it's certainly not going to be more than 80%. But this things that you need to think about. So in your case, I would say you're going to have to run an individual brand circuit. Check with the instructions for the microwave. But we know that it can't be on the small appliance brand circuit. We got it. Now, could I run a 15 amp circuit to that microwave, right? And the answer is yes. We do have those allowances, remember, in the code that says I can run to an individual piece of equipment. I can run a 15 or 20 amp. Just remember, you also want to be very aware of those 210.23a1 rules as well. If it's cord and plug, then you're not to the actual amp draw of the piece of equipment cannot be more than 80% of whatever the rating is of the circuit, and that's based on the overcurrent device ratings. 20 amp, then you're limited to 80% of that. If it's cord and plug connected and that type of thing. And I think I have a nice article on that. This is a good plug for my blog. Go check my blog out because I have a neat article, and I even reference, I believe, a video from Ryan Jackson on it as well, who did a great, amazing job at explaining 210.23. So check that out as well. So hopefully that answers that question for you. Again, if it's cord and plug and it's above a range, then please don't forget the requirements that are clearly stated in 422.16b43, which is demanding that it be an individual brand circuit. So typically they are above a range. So if there's a receptacle and it's cord and plug, then you've got to follow that rule. And it would require an individual brand circuit. If it's just stuck on a shelf somewhere, and it just happens to be on a shelf and it's in that type of thing, you can plug a microwave into the small appliance brand circuit. That's not a concern. Now, if the receptacle that you install specifically for the microwave is above the counter more than 20 inches, okay, well, in that scenario, then, you could run a 15 or a 20 to it, no different than you could run a 15 or a 20 to a refrigerator. It's allowed. But you got to remember all the rules associated with it, and it's totally different allowance, okay? So anyway, hopefully that answers that question for you. Best I can answer that question based on what you're giving me. Okay, see here, one we got here. Okay, this is a little different, and again, this is for somebody specific who submitted this. I'll remind you that anytime you submit something to Ask Paul, you're giving me permission, and it's at my discretion on whether or not I share this. This one says, hello, Paul. It has been quite some time since I last tried to reach out to you and issue an apology for my past transgressions against both Ryan Jackson, the IEC, and your podcast. I fully understand and accept my idiotic actions resulting from my ban from all your publications and products. But I would like to formally apologize for my actions and any flack that may have come your way. I have not only followed you from the early times when you were Top Gun on Mike Holt's forum. Well, I was never a Top Gun on Mike Holt's forum. I loathe Mike Holt's forum. I loathe the people on that forum. Okay, except for Gus, he's pretty good. But I was a Top Gun for Mike years ago. It says, but continually follow you as you make me and many others the very best electricians we can be. I hope that you can forgive me and allow me to partake once again in your educational environment I once took for granted. I do have a question, though. How does a person become part of the code making panel or involved with outfits like the IEC? Thanks again, Paul. You truly are the elite educator of our time. Okay, let me address the past transgressions. First of all, I actually knew who it was, and Ryan had reached out to me. And the point is, anybody that tries to pull that kind of stuff on educators, you could have gotten Ryan in trouble with IEC, which is, again, his main breadwinner for him. And so it's just not cool. So I'm not over it yet. I accept your apology, but I'm not over it yet. So at this stage, I'm not allowing you back into my content. Again, no hard feelings. It's just I don't deal that way. I don't. So apology accepted, but I'm not ready to release that yet. Let's see, answering your question, or if somebody will convey this question to you, if you happen to hear this, because I'm sure I don't block you listening to the podcast. Code making panels. So getting on a code making panel is a process of, you have to be a part of an association, an organization, some kind of group. You can't just get on to get on. For example, if you're a member of IEEE, they have a seat at the table. If you're a member of IAEI, you can get in the pool of individuals who get selected to be on code panel representing the IAEI, which is International Association of Electrical Inspectors. For me, I'm on there because I work for a wire and cable manufacturer, and Copper Development and Aluminum Association both have seats on their associations. They both have seats on the actual certain committees. So I serve on one committee, on one panel. Code Panel 5 is Aluminum Association, and on Code Panel 17, I serve as Copper Development. But you can be on there if you're part of IEC. They have seats at the table. You can get in there if you work for UL. You can get in there if you work for ETL. A bunch of different bimetal associations on the groups. And so there's many ways that you can get on it. You just as an individual cannot on your own. You have to be sponsored by some group to get on there. Okay, so that would be the first thing. Now, involved with outfits like IEC, I could not tell you because I'm not involved with those. I would think that that's the independent electrical contractors. One, you'd have to be an independent electrical contractor. Two, you probably have to join and pay a membership fee. Three, you're probably going to have to start being heavily involved in what they do. Be involved in their meetings and local chapters. Same with the IEI, International Association of Electrical Inspectors. You're going to have to get known a little bit. They're not just going to take anybody and put them on a committee representing their association. One, they need to know that you know what you're talking about. Two, you have to have a track history of knowing what you're talking about, right? And then you can make it to the committees. Same with Aluminum Association and Copper Development. We have a bunch of professionals, members, and we're each distributed amongst the different code panels based on our knowledge. And so, again, it's not just knowledge of wire and cable or copper or aluminum. It's people like me who worked at NEMA and have been an AHJ and worked at municipalities, been an engineer for the municipality, have a broad range of understanding of multiple topics. So it made sense for me to be a representative on one of the code panels. But again, they could decide to put somebody else on the code panel. It's all, depending on the association. So that's how you're going to get on it. You're going to have to get on it through association. Okay? As far as IEC, again, you're just going to have to reach out. If you own a company, become a member or attend meetings. I don't think that NECA, National Electrical Contractors Association, if you're a member of that organization, they have seats on the code panels as well. So that's one way to get on the code panel as well. So if you go to the front of the code book and you look at the different committees, you're going to notice that the different committees, that most all of them are made up of some type of association, a third-party inspection group, municipality, maybe in certain areas where they have lack of representation, IAEI, all those type of things. The IEC, IEEE, NECA, all of these people sit on committees. So it's not just made up of manufacturers like everybody thinks it is. Okay, but to get on there, one, you got to be a part of association and represent them, and that's how you get on there. As far as IEC or any of those other ones like NECA, you just got to get involved, become a member, things like that. First place to start is become a member, pay the dues, be a part of the program. then the more you're active in it, the more that people will notice you, the more that when it comes time for nominations, that you'll be willing to step up and take that nomination. Okay? All right. That is enough of that one. Hopefully that answered that question. And again, individual, I'm sorry. I forgive you, but I'm not ready to move on yet. All right. What's the next one? Let's see here. The next question that we have says, does a USB receptacle have to be WR if installed outside, given it's installed in a bell box with the in-use cover? Can't seem to find it in the code. Also, only one company makes WR USB receptacles. I think he said Hubble. I could not deny or verify that. They released them recently. Okay. Now, that may or may not be true. I do not know, and I wouldn't have any knowledge of that. But the one thing you have to remember that nothing gets us around the requirement that even though it has USB in it, it's still a receptacle, and it's still installed in a wet location outside. So yeah, putting it an in-use cover on it is a requirement in the code, but that doesn't remove the requirements for the receptacle. So you have to have the weather-resistant receptacle. You still got to have the WR. All of that's still required, okay? Now, as always, everybody wants code references, and I like to give code references. So 406.9b1 demands that all 15 and 20 amp, 125 through 250 volt non-locking type receptacles, and that would be your standard attachment plug type of receptacle, okay, shall be listed and so identified as weather-resistant type, okay? Regardless of it having the USB ports on it, it's a receptacle. And if you're installing it in a damp or wet location, then it's got to have that WR rating. Doesn't matter that it requires an in-use box, because that's required if a cord's attached to be in use. It has to have that protection, whether or not the cord's connected or not into the receptacle through that that exterior receptacle. So it doesn't matter. You're still going to have that WR rating on it. Okay. The fact that you want to use it outside and you want to use it is really irrelevant. Okay, because typically you'd use these inside. But if you want to use it outside, and just because they may or may not make one that meets your need, it doesn't circumvent the rule. And the rule is if it's a receptacle and it's being installed outside in a damp or wet location, or I guess could say also inside in a wet or damp location, then it's going to have that WR marking. Doesn't matter about the USB component. With me? All right. Well, that answers that. So, man, we got quite a few in a small amount of time. I think 23, 24 minutes. So, again, as always, if you have any questions for me in the Let's Ask Paul, just go over to paulabernathy.com, submit your questions. I will get you the answer, and hopefully that helps you out. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless, and make sure you subscribe to all of our platforms for the latest information on the National Electrical Code.